Hello, 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 Leo. I am Poetic Heretic, and this is your September 2020 astrology forecast, where we take a look at the most significant astrological developments of the month and interpret them for your sign. Now, this month we are doing things a little bit differently. Rather than having a written report, I am instead interpreting these charts in real time, so that should be interesting. I also want to remind you, as always, that videos like this will be most accurate for your rising sign. And so I recommend using these primarily for your rising sign first and foremost. And then after that, you can also use them for your sun and or moon sign if you would like to. But with that said, dear Leos out there, let us begin. Now, the first chart we're looking at here is the perfecting of the Mars-Saturn square, which is at the end of the month. And the reason we have to look at this first is because this is an aspect that is basically with us all month, and everything else that we go over this month must be understood within the context of this specific aspect. And so, yes, it perfects on September 29th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, but that almost doesn't matter because it's in effect basically all month, the entire month of September. And this is an aspect of frustration. Mars in Aries wants to push forward, wants to act now, wants to be very impulsive. Saturn in Capricorn says, no, you must stop, you must slow down, you must do it this way, you must do it the right way, etc., etc. And so it's this very frustrating start-stop energy, essentially. And that is with us all month. Now, the reason that we are experiencing this is because, of course, Mars is having its extended stay in Aries, and that is due to its upcoming retrograde, which it does indeed go retrograde this month. And so, as it is slowing down to turn retrograde, it ends up held in position, held in place, essentially, right around the final degrees of Aries, like about 25 to 27 degrees of Aries. And as it is holding that position, it is doing so in a square to Saturn. Now, this is highly unusual, and unfortunately, it is highly frustrating. And yet, that is, of course, one of the main challenges that we have to deal with. Now, whatever area of life this falls in for each sign is undergoing a very significant review at this time. And again, yes, I mentioned this in my forecast last month, but it bears repeating here because it is very important. For you, Leo, that area that Mars is in an extended stay in is your ninth house of your belief system, spirituality, ideals, or that which is foreign to you. And so that is an area that you are having to spend more time with right now, that you are having to review more deeply and much longer than usual. It's not an area where you can just move forward all of a sudden, but instead you are having to take more time there. And it amounts to ultimately a transformation as we complete this whole Mars retrograde in Aries cycle, which is not complete until February of 2021, or that is when we are completely out of it anyway. It finishes up in January of 2021. Now, the Mars-Saturn square part of it specifically is much more unique to September and to some extent also October. And so keep that in mind, although Mars will eventually square Saturn again in and around December, January. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but it will square Saturn for a third and final time late this year, early next year. But what you need to know most importantly for right now is that this holding pattern that Mars is in with Saturn right now, and even Saturn has just stationed direct on September 29th when this perfects, as you can see on the chart there, this is with us all month. And so everything that happens in September, we have to interpret in this context of this sort of background energy of frustration. This isn't going away anytime soon. It's not even over once September is over, because there's an additional unfolding story to it. So if you're experiencing a lot of frustration right now, or in the near future, anytime this month, the good news is that that is not a sign that anything has gone wrong. It is, in fact, quite normal to experience a lot of frustration right now, maybe to be very busy. But the bad news is that is your new best friend that is not going away anytime soon, and that you have to learn to live with, whether you like it or not, for months to come. The Mars-Saturn part is mainly this month and into October, I would say, and then returns in kind of late December, January area. But this Mars extended stay in Aries is basically with us all the way through January. Although then it gets, well, technically Mars goes into Taurus and then it squares Saturn finally. And, I'll spare you the details right now. What's important is that this is a very long-lasting aspect. Now, with all of that said, the first major event we will look at this month is the full moon in Pisces on September 2nd at 1:22 a.m. Eastern Time, so adjust your time zone accordingly. So full moon in Pisces, this presents an interesting contrast between the sun in earthy, practical Virgo and the moon in dreamy, mystical Pisces. And so it gives us a break for a couple days or so from the earthy, practical Virgo energy that we are in, that we are always in this time of year, with the sun making its way through Virgo. And instead, we can let our minds wander for a few days. We can let our imaginations run wild. We can maybe breathe a little bit easier, although with everything else going on right now, I don't know how much easier that will be. But at least it gives us a nice little break from some of the maybe overly mental energy that can sometimes happen with the sun moving through Virgo. Now, for you specifically, Leo, this full moon is taking place in your 8th house, and the full moon is where things come to a head. And so you can expect things to come to a head in the area of your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death. So that is what we have there. The full moon is also co-present with Neptune, the modern ruler of Pisces, and so that adds another element of dreaminess and spirituality, illusion, fantasy, all that is supernatural and non-physical, connected in with this full moon. It is also in a very close sextile with Uranus and Taurus, and so there's an added element of excitement and innovation and newness and that which is unexpected or revelatory associated with this full moon. And so that sort of underpinning of excitement should be fun and perhaps refreshing. Now, later that same day at 8:19 a.m. Eastern Time, we have Venus opposite Saturn, which now creates quite the contrast with that dreamy, mystical energy of the Pisces full moon, because Venus opposite Saturn is a much more somber, serious vibe. And so it's going to be interesting to have those two very different energies playing out, active at the same time. So for you specifically, Leo, the Venus-Saturn opposition is someone or something challenging you in the area of how you spend time alone, or your enemies, and or your work, health schedule, or day-to-day activities that requires you to make a decision, and that ends up most likely affecting your career or public image, your communication, short distance travel, or that which is familiar to you, your work health schedule or day-to-day activities, again, and or your major relationships. So a number of possibilities there. Now, this Venus-Saturn opposition is also square to Mars. In other words, both Venus and Saturn are square to Mars. Venus is kind of coming in and activating that Mars-Saturn square and becoming a part of it temporarily. That can increase the probability or propensity for anger, for difficult relationship developments, especially with Venus being involved here, for more frustration, wanting to take some kind of action now, but being held back from it. However, a potential saving grace here is the fact that Mercury in Virgo is applying to a sextile to Venus and a trine to Saturn as this is happening, perhaps suggesting that it is through communication that we can find a means of resolution of this otherwise very difficult Venus-Saturn opposition square to Mars. So that is what we have there. Next, on September 11th at 4:20 p.m., we have the Sun opposite Neptune. So first of all, this is activating, similar to the Pisces full moon, that dynamic between the Sun in earthy practical Virgo and Neptune in dreamy mystical Pisces. So sort of the practical reality versus the amazing fantasy. But on a deeper level, for you, Leo, this is most likely manifesting as, again, someone or something challenging you, this time in the area of your money or self-image and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death, and involving your ego or sense of self, as well as fantasy or spirituality or dreams and imagination that requires you to make a decision and that ends up affecting you personally and or your partner's money, business, or issues of life and death. So very interesting stuff there. But that is not where the story ends. If you notice, the Sun is also at this time making powerful trines to Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn in Capricorn. And these are telling us that there will also likely be breakthroughs around the middle of the month, more or less. The breakthroughs will most likely involve an expansion of one's worldview with Jupiter, deep emotional experiences and or inner transformation with the trine to Pluto, as well as reality, limitation, obstacles, or authority with the trine to Saturn. Now, these breakthroughs may be for good or ill. They may be positive or negative, but expect swift developments in that area. And remember, of course, again, these planets in Capricorn, this Capricorn conglomeration that we have right now, they are in your 6th house of your work, health, schedule, or day-to-day activities. And so expect that area of life to be activated as well when we have those breakthroughs. Next, on September 17th at 7 a.m. Eastern Time, we have the new moon in Virgo in your 2nd house of money or self-image. And so the new moon is where we have the new beginning each month, the seed that is planted for the following lunar cycle, which lasts a month. So what we have here is a very earthy and practical new moon, with it being in the sign of Virgo. And thus, the flavor of the next month has this very earthy, practical vibe to it. Now, that is even more so the case when we observe that this new moon is in a powerful trine with Saturn that is very much interested in making things real, that which is physical, that which is tangible, that which is reality. So we have that. We also have the trine aspect telling us that there may be breakthroughs again at this time. Now, again, for you, Leo, with this taking place in your second house, you can expect new beginnings in the area of your self-image and or your financial life, and perhaps some breakthroughs in that area and or your work, health schedule, or day-to-day activities. So very powerful and practical new moon there. On September 24th at 6:47 a.m. Eastern Time, we have Mercury opposite Mars. Now, this is an aspect of anger, of angry words, difficult exchanges, arguments, and conflict. For you, Leo, this is manifesting as, again, someone or something challenging you, this time in the area of your communication, short distance travel, or what is familiar to you, and or your beliefs, spirituality, ideals, or that which is foreign to you, involving what you think about, write, speak, or talk about, as well as motivation, focused action, desire, or willpower that pushes you to make a decision or requires you to make a decision, and most likely ends up affecting your money or self-image, your friends or social group, your belief, spirituality, ideals, or that which is foreign to you, and or your home and family life. So a number of possibilities there. However, in addition to all of that, this Mercury-Mars opposition is also square Saturn in your sixth house of your work, health schedule, day-to-day activities. So that is adding even more of an element of frustration to the mix of limitation and obstacles. But when we look at this deeper, we see that what Saturn is doing here is it is accepting the management of Mercury and Mars. And in medieval astrology, this idea of a planet accepting the management is when one planet will act as like a judge or arbiter or mediator or something of that nature between two opposing parties. And so here we have Mercury and Mars as the two opposing parties, and Saturn is like the authority figure who is somehow judging that or determining what the resolution will be for that. And I think that's even more likely than usual in this case because Saturn itself, the planet Saturn, is already very much associated with authority figures. And so that's what we could be seeing here. Now, remember, Leo, that for you, Saturn is in your sixth house of your work, health schedule, day-to-day activities. So this authority figure that ends up resolving things, or this mediator, or whoever they happen to be, will quite possibly be found in that area of your work or somehow involving your health, your schedule, your day-to-day activities. So do keep that in mind. So that's about it, Leo. Wow, looks like I got through your forecast faster than all the previous ones for some reason. Perhaps it's your fiery energy just imbuing itself onto me as I do this forecast. I don't know. I have no idea. But basically, to try to sum this up, the month of September, I'm not going to lie to you, is a pretty damn difficult month, especially with that Mars-Saturn square. There is so much frustration. There's so much desire to move forward, but the need to restrain ourselves at the same time. And it's not easy. It really is not easy energy to navigate, but this is nevertheless our challenge at this time. I would say, again, just remember this Mars-Saturn square is part of a longer cycle. Mars extended stay in Aries, your ninth house of your beliefs, spirituality, ideals, and that which is foreign to you, is experiencing a much longer review right now, an extended analysis or maybe an extended presence with that part of your life. And it is inevitably a transformation, like all astrological developments. And so, as always, my advice is it is best to figure out a way to work with this energy rather than try to resist it and just want it to all be done and over with. That is the last thing that you would want to do. So that is about it, Leo. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, feel free to like and subscribe if you're not already, as I am always creating more content like this on this channel. I want to say that despite the wretched astrological developments this month, I hope you have a great month of September regardless, or at least as good of a month as one can have under these conditions. And just thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.